Live from the TechTalk studios in the nation's capital and the heartland of America. It's TechTalk.
Well, guess what time it is? It's Friday. It's time for Tech Talk. I'm Brad Koss, my co-host, the Data Doc of Talk, Dr.Jay Greenstein. Jay, how are you doing, man?
What's up, brother? I'm doing great. It's Friday, and we're back on Tech Talk, so I'm pretty stoked.
We are, and we've got sort of a special case here. We're broadcasting this live for the Illinois Chiropractic Society and our good friend there, Mark. And we've invited some great guests with us today. And you're going to ask the question, why are we doing lawyer kind of things? But actually, we're trying to show that technology is advancing even in the educational aspect of it. And you and I have been using TechTalk for that realm anyway for the last year, is trying to help docs understand things from a fun and learning kind of way also. So today, we've got two great guests. They're both friends of ours for a very long time. One, Miss Kim Driggers. Kim is a friend of ours from the Florida Chiropractic Association. She is the Assistant General Counsel for the FCA and one of our close friends. And her fiance, Mr. Steve Jaffe. Steve is a mediator for Upton, Watson, White, and Max Mediation Group out of Florida, Fort Lauderdale, I believe. So, Kim, Steve, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks, Brad.
Happy to be here.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's great. Listen, we're going to get into talking a little bit about auto accident, managing risk, and recovering from treatment when a chiro performs it. And so let's let Jay ask you and start off into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great topic. I'm so glad that you guys are here with us today. Thank you so much for spending time with Brad and I. So the first question I have for you all is, like, when the coverage limits are not enough to cover the doctor bills, like, what happens? What are the actions that providers need to take, both with the attorney but also with patients? Because they're really serving two customers, right? You've got to serve the client, the patient, and you've also got to do a good job with the attorney so they send you more business. So maybe you can share with us, when the coverage limits are not enough to cover the doctor bills, what should the doctor do?
All right, well, let me start here, and just for the audience to let them know that, I'm licensed. Steve and I are licensed to practice in Florida. We do know, Steve, I did find out, though, that Illinois has 2550 in mandatory BI, no PIP. It sounds like it's optional med pay. And also for the audience, I sued insurance companies when they denied those medical bills. Thank you.
That a girl.
Yes, sue those bastards.
And Steve, for a very long time, he did class action work, but he also did personal injury work. So he was the one working with the doctor. So we're kind of coming at it from a little bit of a different way. So I'm going to toss that one to you, Steve. And when there's not enough coverage, what happens?
Sure. So in the early part of my career, I worked for the largest advertiser in the state of Florida. This is well before Morgan & Morgan exploded. And so I had a very high volume practice. And what is most important here is the idea of having relationships with doctors. If you don't have good relationships with a handful of lawyers, you're going to get in trouble. So if for example, in Illinois, if there's a $25,000 limit on the bodily injury coverage, you need to know that right away. All right? You cannot be having bills that run up to $12,000 or $15,000. So the communication with the lawyer as to what coverages are is important to garner expectations, all right? And so you have to be careful, because at the end of the day, if you run up a very high bill and there's nothing left for the lawyer and or the client, there's going to be a problem, and you're going to ultimately be reducing your bill. Now, that has to be something that you know in advance. So you either control the amount of your bill, or you do whatever you need to do and understand that there will be a bill reduction at the end of the case, because there's not enough money to go around.
Steve, man, I love what you just said. And there are three key words that I hope every single person in the audience heard, which was relationship, communication, and expectations. I mean, those are critically important. So thank you for that. When it comes to like how to make sure you're not paid last, because there's a lot of people after this money, the patient goes to the ER or they go to the ortho or primary care, then they get to you. So like how can we as doctors of chiropractic do our best to get paid first?
I don't know if Illinois has a lien law. Most states, if they have one, it's really hard to enforce. Sometimes the hospitals have the lien law, so they get paid first. If there's optional med pay, as you treat, you should be able to get some of that medical payments coverage. In Florida, we have no fault, we have PIP, so we do get paid in the beginning for the first $10,000. But, you can't, again, it goes back to Steve saying relationships, because at the end of the day, when that lawyer representing your patient is sitting down with his client, and there's that pot of money, and then there's 5 or 6 different medical bills to pay, the MRI, the ER balance, maybe an ambulance balance, it's a little bit subjective. I hate to say it. If there's letters of protection, that's going to help you better. Maybe we can talk about that, in a little bit. Yeah. But it goes back to relationships, and sometimes you're going to take less on one because, there might be only $10,000 in coverage, but your job is still, you want to treat that patient and get that patient better. But relationships, follow up, calling, and that's not part really. You want to treat your patients and you don't want to worry about that business aspect of it, but it's just part of risk analysis and getting paid if you're going to want to do PI work.
What typically...
So did I hear you correctly, Kim, that go ahead, Brad.
No, I was going to ask, typically what percentage of that bill is the attorney, the lawyer looking for whenever there is a case like that?
So in Florida, there's a set attorney's fee, and it's 33 1/3 before litigation is commenced, and then 40% thereafter. There are certain law firms that charge lesser fees, so you can always go down, you just can't go up. Okay? But back to the initial question, how do you get paid first? Well, Kim, did I understand there's no PIP in Illinois? So they're probably using health insurance from $1 or letters of protection. With regard to health insurance, you have 1 year to get submitted. So obviously, the quicker you submit, you open the account and start submitting your bills, the quicker you're going to see a return of money regarding your bill. Letters of protection is probably the other way that you're going to get paid, and that then reverts back to that relationship. If you don't have relationships, you'll be last to get paid, and it will be ugly. So it's very crucial that, in my opinion, all the counsel that I do to my friends that are chiropractors, have 4 or 5. Don't have 30. Have 4 or 5 guys that you're buddies with.
Or girls.
And they can call
or
you.
Women.
Or girls. Mm-hmm. Buddies is non-gender. That you can call up and get people into the chiropractic office within a few hours or a day. It's about customer service. And so at the end of the day, when it's time to divvy up the money, because you have a letter of protection, that lawyer is your friend. He's not going to want to hurt you. So it's going to be equity, fairness. So that's what it goes back to: expectations, goal setting, and making sure everyone understands what's going on. There are certain limits.
Yeah, I love what you said, guys, because that's how we've built our practices, and we have a wide variety of ways that we bring in new patients. Everything from social to physician referrals, but also a few small but strong attorney relationships. And it's like you say, Kim, sometimes you have to, take a little bit bigger of a hit on one case in order to help the attorney. He's also or she's also your friend, so you're trying to do them a favor, and they'll take care of you when they can the next time. And I think that's how really strong business relationships work, whether it's attorney relationships or other relationships. That's how they work. So it's really sage advice. And again, I just want to emphasize the point that you don't have to have every attorney referring you business. You develop a few really strong relationships that you can refer back to and that you can take care of and provide that customer service that Steve, you were talking about. And you're going to win 10 times out of 10. So
on some of the provider communication lines that I watch over, attorneys and dealings with attorneys are not always happy cases. Steve, Kim, typically do you not get paid until the final resolution when the provider releases the patient? How does the payment schema work when you're dealing in an accident like this?
Steve, I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. Sure. Well, if you're asking if the attorneys get paid, how they get paid, and that answer is it's all on the back end. If there's not a recovery, there is no attorney's fees. There are no attorney's fees. And the same goes with costs generally. You eat your costs if there's no recovery. So it's a non-risk to the injured person. But again, it's an attorney's fees contract that's signed upon retaining the lawyer, and it spells it out as to what the percentage of the recovery will be, and it is paid at the end of the case via a closing statement where a lawyer should itemize every nickel and dime that has been achieved from a monetary standpoint, and then all expenses, medical bills, and all cost to the nickel, showing the net to the client.
I'm really curious,
and then everybody signs off.
What are your guys' opinion on having the settlement sheet shared with the provider? Like if a provider is being asked to take a reduction, do you guys think it's necessary, appropriate, a good idea for the attorneys to share that information so they can see they're not necessarily being screwed by the attorney, especially if it's like a first-time attorney and you've never worked with them before, you'd like to set up a relationship, but you want to make sure you're not getting screwed. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
So I get a lot of calls from our members, very frustrated because they have no negotiating power because the lawyer calls and asks for that discount and they won't give up the closing statement. I've got a letter for our members that I'll send them that cites to the Florida bar rules. There's actually a bar rule that says when there's a dispute on a case like that the lawyer has to give them an accounting of the bills. Which to me is a settlement statement, but they never want to give it up. They say that, it's confidential information and, but I try to get the lawyers to give it to them. Oftentimes it doesn't happen. It's a good idea because otherwise you're negotiating you have no idea what the settlement was, how much the other bills are. And certainly there are plenty of times where the doctor will say, if you take a hit on your fee, I'll take a hit on my fee. Personal injury lawyers don't often agree with that because they're waiting just as long as you are for your money. They're taking the risk up front, but in not getting paid anything whatsoever. So for that risk, they say, we get paid first, and the Florida bar rules allow them to get paid first.
Yeah, it's really interesting though because the value that's created in the case is oftentimes driven by the bills that are created by the provider. And so we're the ones actually creating value for the case. The attorneys tend to capture that value, and that's their role in the whole kind of tripartite system here between patient, provider, and attorney. We've been pretty successful at getting information from the attorneys that we work with on the settlement amount. They want to be honest with us so that we're like, okay, we understand, and we'll take the reduction for you. Steve?
Two things. Lawyers look at it different than you just did. The bills, although that you would argue they drive the value of the case, I would argue the injuries drive the value of the case.
Sure.
And as the medical provider, you are obviously capturing with great notes and documenting the injuries that were sustained in the motor vehicle accident. And that's where the value of the case is.
Sure.
Certainly you get paid for your services rendered, as do the lawyers. But it goes back to relationships. If you're working with 4 or 5 chiropractors and 4 or 5 lawyers, then sharing of a closing statement and sharing a reduction in an attorney's fee shouldn't be a big deal. If I want to take advantage of that chiropractor and not share my closing statement, but yet tell them I'm taking the same haircut you are, oftentimes that's a lie.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sorry. It's just the truth.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
But your friend would not lie to you. That's the
key. That's the key, Steve. 100%. So if a provider says like, no, I'm not going to accept the reduction, and there's a $10,000 bill, and the attorney says, okay, well, like what happens next? Like, can the attorney still settle the case? Isn't it ultimately the patient's or the client's responsibility to pay the bill, assuming that the financial policy of the chiropractor is in order and the patient signed that document? So ultimately the patient's responsible, are they not?
Kim, you want to take it?
You can take it.
The answer to that question is a resounding yes.
So there is a little bit of leverage that the provider has, a little bit.
No question, but The provider does, but how many providers in your practice, and I don't need to really answer, is in the business of suing their clients?
Yeah, 100% agree.
For collection.
Yep, it's a nightmare.
For collection matters. It's bad business, so you really don't want to do that. You do that with social media the way it is, you're going to get blasted all over China. But the point is, it is factually accurate. They've signed a piece of paper saying ultimately, regardless of the case, you're responsible to me. It's a lawyer's obligation, an ethical lawyer's obligation, to not do a closing statement until all medical bills have been accounted for and agreed to, in my opinion.
That's great. That's great feedback. That's awesome. So Brad, I know we've been going quite some time now. I guess it's time for a break, unfortunately. But I love this conversation because you get to learn so much about the relationship between the attorney and the chiropractor that can really drive growth in your business, but also reduce the risk that you have of really losing out on new business and also losing out on money for your cases. So this is great conversation. So excited to continue it after the break, guys.
Let's do that. Let's take a short break. I'm Brad Cost, Dr. Jay Greenstein. We're here with Kim Driggers and Steve Jaffe. We'll be right back. You're listening to Tech Talk.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Jay Greenstein.
This is Jay Greenstein.
With me today is Dr. Jay Greenstein.
Dr.Jay Greenstein.
The world around us, and healthcare specifically, is changing at an exponential pace. Chiropractic is perfectly positioned like we have never been right now today to be more successful and to be more impactful for the communities and patients that we serve. There are all sorts of evidence-based guidelines that support the use of non-pharmacological approaches. But what I want America to know is that health doesn't come from a pill. It's our responsibility as healthcare providers to educate the community about the evidence that exists. We really need to have a private practice app, something that will help us engage with our patients in ways that they've never experienced before. The intersection of technology and quality care is where the future of healthcare is at, and I'm really excited to bring that forward in the future.
As a ChiroHealth USA provider, we're excited to work with you to identify which of your discounts are good, bad, or illegal. Most chiropractors bend over backwards to make their care affordable. Unfortunately, dual fee schedules, false claims, inducement violations, and time of service discounts can all put you at risk. And, no offense, everybody's doing it doesn't work with auditors. At ChiroHealth USA, we're here to help protect and grow your practice. Just listen to our provider stats. 20% overall practice growth versus 2019. Over 50% of CHUSA patients renew their membership year after year. Over 2,500 patients per month use our provider search directory to find a CHUSA provider. At ChiroHealth USA, our purpose is simple. It's to improve the quality of life for our doctors, their teams, and their patients. With over 5,000 providers and nearly 1 million patients, ChiroHealth USA is the network that works for chiropractic. For more information, call 888-719-9990 or visit www.chirohealthusa.com.
Listen to the future of healthcare with the data jocks of talk. It's Tech Talk.
Welcome back. This is Tech Talk. Brad Cost, Dr. Jay Greenstein. We're talking with our Florida connection today with Miss Kim Driggers and Steve Jaffe, our good friends from the Florida Chiropractic Association. And we've been talking about auto accident, the lawyer effects of that. And you guys were talking earlier about these letters of protections. I'm not an attorney, I'm not a chiro, but explain to us, we're talking about documenting here and getting some kind of upfront expectation of protection. Can you explain that, Kim?
That's exactly right, an expectation of protection. So it really is what it says. I'm protecting you. The doctor is asking the lawyer to protect me in my bills because I'm treating your patient and I am going to be waiting a year or 2 years or 3 years in order to get paid. And in exchange for that, because there is no immediate insurance, you sign this letter of protection and promise when there is a settlement that you will pay me. So a lot of times, I mean, in the past, a lot of our doctors say they weren't getting these letters of protection. Friend or no friend, When I practiced, and Steve can comment on this, I wanted that letter of protection because it protected me, the lawyer for your patient, my client. And I say, listen, you signed this letter of protection, client, so we have to pay this doctor. So it really protects the lawyer as well.
That's great feedback.
Is that considered a legal agreement, Kim, or is it just as it is? It's a letter of protection, an indication.
It is a legal agreement. Steve, I don't know if you've seen one actually go to court, then sue. They
Yes.
do with the Florida bar. If a lawyer goes ahead and gives the client money without honoring letters of protection, knowing that letter of protection existed, there are consequences through the state bar. But I don't know, Steve, you've seen one actually be litigated?
Absolutely, it's a breach of contract. You got the right people signing it. There's consideration, the delay of payment, promise to pay. It's a straight breach of contract, and courts do not look kindly on lawyers who do not pay doctors.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Why?
Doctors, I know
Problem
the audience
is-
loves to hear that.
But hang on. The problem is, if your bill is $12,000, you're going to go hire a lawyer. They're going to charge, let's just make up a number, $3,000 or $4,000 to do the case. You see what I'm saying? You're going to net X amount, and that's why you should understand that and be willing to compromise, because the alternative is to get in a lawsuit, protracted, spend more money to get some type of ROI.
Yep, protracted is a key word there as well.
But
Sorry,
that
Kim, go ahead.
that also brings to the point where it is a contract, so you can draft the letter of protection as you see fit. So the one I've drafted for our membership, has something in there about being able to get the statement at the end. The patient signs off that you can have that statement to see how much others are being paid. And you could potentially put in there an attorney fee provision if it has to go to court, the prevailing party gets attorney's fees. But an astute lawyer who reads it is most likely going to say, listen, I'm not going to sign that part of it. But It's a contract, and you can put what you want in it.
That's great
guys
feedback, you
talked
guys.
about
And
there
Kim, if you maybe would be willing to share that with Mark from the ICS, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Brad? I know you were going to say something, but really quick. I'm older. I'm not older
Yeah.
than you, but I might be more senile.
You got longer
so
hair.
I'm really
than I do.
curious to know. I got longer hair. It's affecting my thinking.
Could be.
I'm really curious to know about a story, a time, a case where a chiropractor just completely just screwed the whole thing up, right? And just the case went awry because he or she had their heads up their butts. And then, but I also want to know the flip side, where maybe there was a challenging or difficult case, but because the chiropractor did things the right way, it actually worked out in everybody's favor. Do you guys have any stories like that?
Sure. So
He's
the
so
easy
matter of
one
fact.
on screwing it up. Sometimes you get very busy, and little things matter. Details matter, especially in the world of personal injury. So the most important thing when someone first comes in, when they're documenting the date of loss, is to get the right date of loss. The second most important thing is whatever the description of the accident is to properly document how it happened. Because a year later, trust me, those defense lawyers are going to get those documents, and if there's a mistake in those documents, it's going to look very poorly on the client and the chiropractor. So wrong data intake is a problem, or correct data intake should be the goal. And then on the positive side, I've had cases where I've gotten a call from my friend who's the treating chiropractor, and it's 7 to 9 days post-loss, and they call me up and go, oh my God, I just found something. I think we need to do X, Y, and Z because I think this is what's going on here. I think we caught something. And then you chase that rabbit down the hole, and they do some diagnostic testing that may not necessarily be accident related, but it reveals a cancer, an early detection cancer. And because the chiropractor was on it early, that person's theoretical life was saved because they got it when it was a stage 1 and not a stage 4.
That's awesome. Love that story.
Yeah, and so both of those things have occurred.
Yeah, that's great. Kim, did you want to share any of your fun experiences?
Well, no, I mean, a good chiropractor on the stand in trial can be a huge benefit. And, they're discussing chiropractic, which some of those jurors don't know what it is. But it's also, discussing this treatment and getting this patient better without drugs or surgery, which is a good thing. So, if the chiropractor isn't running up the bills, $25,000 unnecessary treatment, isn't hoarding that patient, and referring that patient out when the patient needs to be referred out, the doctor can do a tremendous amount of good for the lawyer in the case of a trial.
The clinical practice guidelines that exist for the profession, you can find them on clinicalcompass.org. All you got to do is read those guidelines, and you can prescribe an appropriate evidence-based treatment program for your patients that would and should stand up in court, and does, because I've been in court, stand up in court every single time. And so a little bit of information can go a long way when it's based in science. So those are my words of advice for you chiros out there. Like, read the clinical practice guidelines so that when you're on the stand, you can actually substantiate the need for care, because it's in the literature. Brad, were you going to say something, because I kind of interrupted you before?
No, that's okay. Again, I'm sort of an outsider in this whole process. So, Jay, let's apply a little technology here. How can using things like electronic medical records and documentation, testing, how can that apply here as a chiro? And then Steve and Kim, talk about that, how that happens in an actual case if it goes to court and stands up in court.
I mean, I think EHRs are critically important on so many levels, especially as more advanced technology comes into play, like artificial intelligence and NLP, natural language processing, where we can really start to understand and aggregate the data that we're providing inside the EHRs and the outcomes that we're getting for patients across a wide variety of demographic variables and clinical variables. So the ability to take information and data from an EHR in aggregate is a huge opportunity for us as a profession moving forward. But as it relates to just efficiency, like, it's way faster for me to do a note in an electronic health record than it is for me to handwrite, and my handwriting is for crap. I mean, nobody can read it, and so that wouldn't really hold up in court. So for me, EHRs is a major leap forward for us, and I think we're only seeing right now the beginning of the impact that it's going to have over time from a technology standpoint. But would love to hear what Kim and Steve have to say about their experience with EHRs compared to, let's say, handwritten notes.
Go ahead, Kim, you can take it first.
No, I mean, it's just, to me, they're critically important. But when I was practicing, which was a while ago before, joining the association full time, some of those records were bad. It was, State Farm would come in, or Allstate would come in and say, these notes are all the same. They didn't want to pay for treatment because everything was the same. So I imagine the EHR companies have gotten better at that. I think it's critically important to have legible notes, detailed notes, as long as they're not duplicative each and every time.
Yep.
Perfect. So notes that I made responsive to that before you spoke, Kim, was no copy and paste. It's the death knell of a case. Yeah. You'll get crushed. You'll get the audit from the carrier if there is a collateral source payments, but if not, the lawyer will crush you with a copy and paste. So with electronic records, I would hope that as best you can as a practicing chiropractor, you make it as personal as possible per patient. You're there. You're the frontline, boots on the ground person to help tell the medical story of that patient. The ortho overlay or the neurologist theoretically are there just to kind of jump in and do their thing and get out. But you're there every few days, every few weeks, and you need to be their advocate. And the best way to do that is to make the notes as personal as possible to capture the truth of what happened.
That's right. You have to be their advocate. You have a ethical responsibility to tell the story. And by the way, it's good for your business, because if you put the time and effort into the notes, you're doing right by the patient, but you're also doing right by your practice. So that's critically important. I really appreciate that feedback, you guys.
And I've seen the large insurance companies who have endless amounts of money to spend. They've collated all of those doctor visits for, say, 6, 7, 8, 9 different patients, and they'll redact the patient names and they'll put it next to each other So you have, 25 patients and all the records are identical. Just not a good look when you're on the stand.
Nope, it's nuts. It's nuts, Kim. So I have a question. We're gonna pivot a little bit, and I wanted to know a little bit more about treatment plans, and what do you do if an attorney's trying to dictate the treatment plan to the provider? They're playing quarterback essentially for this patient and their care. What are your thoughts on this? Should this happen? What are good responses that a chiropractor can give to the attorney when this happens? I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this.
Steve?
So this is important early and often. Treatment plans. Now listen, as a practicing lawyer, I am not going to overstep my bounds and tell you how to treat a patient. What I want to talk to you about early is the limitations of insurance. If it's only a 25 policy, then you need to know that early so you can do what you need to do from an expectation standpoint. If it's a large policy, then all I care about is if I have good relationships with the chiropractor, that I know that they know how to do a treatment plan. They know how to, when appropriate, get the MRIs ordered. When they have a chronic headache for 3 to 4 weeks, you better get a neurologist to take a look at it. If you have the radicular pain in the extremities, or even if it's just localized, get the MRI, get an ortho overlay. And again, if you never work with a particular chiropractor, there may be a tendency to have that discussion, and that could be a little off-putting. But if you have a relationship, you've been down this road before, no problem. At the end of the case, at least in Florida, I want a final report, an overall report of the care and treatment that was rendered. I'm okay as a practitioner paying a separate fee for that report, right? Because you're going to spend time to put it together. But it's going to be what ultimately will be your narrative when you testify in court.
Yeah, your summary of the entire case, essentially, right?
Right. So why not do it? So I'll pay you for it, and then so go and do it. But it needs to contain certain things, and then once you do it 1 or 2 times, then that relationship should flourish.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that the chiropractor should always be able to tell the attorney what an evidence-based program looks like and why they're making the clinical decisions that they're making, and certainly keep the communication going as it relates to advanced imaging that's needed, or ortho or neuro referral. I mean, that seems to be a no-brainer to me, right, Kim?
Well, yeah, sometimes in states like Florida that has that $10,000 of PIP benefits, and there are other states that have that. Sometimes there are doctors who want to retain the full $10,000 and they don't want to see beyond the other treatment. It drives it, and that's been some of the criticism with our no-fault system, for years, but it's been around since I think 1977.
Wow.
So it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, Steve, he does mediations for the last 4 years now. He sees those bills coming all the time. What do you have to say about that?
So I'm going to take the statement and say, hopefully in Illinois it's not like this. Because even if you get outside of the lower half of Florida, it's not like this. But in South Florida, from Orlando down, Tampa, Orlando, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, believe it or not, there are chiropractic bills that run between $20,000 and $35,000.
That's just nuts.
Now,
that's just nuts.
When I first told Kim this, she absolutely thought I had 7 heads, and I could show you dozens and dozens of.
And
cases
I was in North Florida. I was in Tallahassee for a long, first Orlando, but then Tallahassee, and it's definitely different there.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a discussion of a treatment plan, if there's a 25 policy, your bills, I'm sorry, your bills, if they get north of $7,500, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's been so rare that our bills are anywhere remotely close to that, the way that we treat our patients. I mean, we treat our patients the way that we treat our patients regardless of the payer. And so that's what we do. And you know what? I sleep pretty good at night. I'm pretty happy about that. I may not be the richest man in the world, but I certainly sleep well at night.
Expectations and candid honesty. No defense lawyer in South Florida gives any credibility to a chiropractic bill that's $20,000 to $35,000. It kills the case. because it's just gouging.
The other issue is also related to the profession as a whole, right? Like we've had this uphill battle ever since the AMA created this committee on quackery, and chiropractors were going to jail on behalf of taking care of their patients. And finally, legitimacy really has arrived in chiropractic. I mean, the scientific evidence is clear. You got publications in Lancet and Annals of Internal Medicine and clinical practice guidelines that support what we do every single day. There is no question about what we do and the legitimacy of providing a comprehensive multimodal approach to musculoskeletal care using adjustments and soft tissue work and rehab and all that good stuff. Somebody delivers, or a group of chiropractors deliver $35,000 bills on every single patient with shit documentation, and all that does is tear the profession down, and it makes it bad for everybody else. So yeah, it pisses me off. It just pisses me off.
One last thing I want to touch on when we're talking about helping the profession. You touched on the AMA. In Florida, not in Florida, the AMA put out a book called the American Medical Association Guides to the Evaluations of Permanent Impairments. All right? And that is the Bible when it comes to diagnosing and documenting permanent impairments. And so whether you're an orthopedic, a neurologist, or a chiropractor, that should be the basis of your opinions.
Yep.
That I followed the care and treatment plans of the AMA guide, and as a result, we've met this criteria, this criteria, this criteria, and that results in a permanent impairment of X amount. You can have the book, you go to page and line, and you're documenting your job.
Yeah. And you're helping the patient who might have some sort or does have some sort of permanent disability or impairment, and they need that opinion, they need that official opinion to help them with their case, and the attorney obviously needs it as well.
Well, importantly for future care, because their lawyer is going to be asking for future care and treatment.
Right.
And so if that's properly documented, then there's going to be money in there for the future care and treatment for that patient who needs it.
Yep, 100%. I want to talk a little bit about referrals. We touched on it earlier about referrals to, for imaging or for other specialists. What do you think the role is of the attorney to dictate where those referrals go? Like, I might have an ortho that I just absolutely love, and I trust that ortho not to cut every single person open 6 ways from Sunday. But I want an opinion because maybe they're not responding to conservative care as quickly as I would like. But the attorney wants us to send to some other dude. What are the lines that are drawn, and how can chiropractors respond when there's not agreement on the referral that needs to be made?
Steve?
Kim, you want me to take that? So let's go back to what we started off with, and that's that relationship with 5 or 6, 4 or 5 lawyers and chiropractors. There should be these discussions over coffee. All right, spend the time to develop your relationships and say, well, who's your network? Who do you like working with? Well, I like working with this person for these reasons. And have that discussion well before patient A walks in the office, so that's already understood where that patient's going to be directed if needed. Yep. All right? If you never worked with that person before, there's going to be some desire from the lawyer's part to quarterback, because if I can get you to send all your patients to the orthopedic X, that may result in orthopedic X sending me some work.
That's right. 100%.
Okay?
Yeah, and it happens.
And diagnostic testing. If I can get you to send all your cases to MRI Center Y, and oh, by the way, I might have a financial interest in MRI Center Y. You can't because self-referral, but I can. Well, that's not cool. And so you need to know these things before you get involved. There's always a reason why someone's trying to direct where and who to go to. You just need to know what it is.
That's great feedback. Kim, any other thoughts on that?
No, he's right. That's it. That's true.
You agree?
I totally agree. There's always a reason.
Yeah.
It's just like everything, Jay. Relationship. Our previous guest that we had last week talked about relationships, and again, it seems like it applies here. I've got a quick question for Kim and Steve. Do all PI cases end up with a lawyer involved? Are there cases where the payer just pays it? I mean, do most of the cases roll into an attorney kind of a relationship?
What part of the country you live in?
You know where I live. Right in the middle, man.
I'm just saying. My point is, if they answer that question geographically in South Florida, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting business that probably we don't want to spin off into right now. But yes, most of them are repped up very early post-loss.
It's super interesting for me because, we have, again, a handful of attorneys that we refer to, and we recommend that our patients get an attorney because the insurance company is out there to totally screw them. And at least if we've got an ethical attorney in their camp that's going to protect them, then we want that to happen. We want their medical bills paid. We want to make sure that they've got all their rights as it relates to their auto repairs and lost wages and all of that stuff. And why should they have to deal with any of that nonsense? And ultimately, I think it's worth hiring an expert to help you through that entire journey.
Let's remember, insurance companies are in the business to obtain premium and not pay claims, and that's how the company makes their money.
And billions and trillions. Yep.
Okay, so they're not in the business of paying claims. They're in the business of denying claims, whether it's health insurance or or liability coverage. That's where they make their money.
Yep.
No kidding. You mean
and
payers?
There are studies. Let me jump in one more thing. There are studies that show that the settlement value of personal injury cases with attorneys and without attorneys are at least 2 to 3 times higher.
Wow. That's awesome.
So
Brad,
it's just
I think we have to take a break, right? Do we have to take a break?
But it's just shocking to me that you think that payers don't want to pay the bills. I mean, that's just amazing.
It's an amazing thing in the insurance world.
Shocking.
It's just shocking, isn't it? All right, guys, listen, we're going to take a quick break. You're tuned in to Tech Talk. I'm Brad Cost, my co-host, Dr.Jay Greenstein. We'll be back in just a minute.
With the data jocks of talk, it's Tech Talk.
This episode is sponsored by InfinEDI. In the modern age of electronic data interchange, InfinEDI is committed to helping clinicians get paid fast so that they can spend less time tracking claims and more times with patient. As a pro advocate for the healthcare industry, we create tools that make sense for electronic claim processing and business analytics. Couple that with superior support team, and we strive to ensure that your business is performing at its best. InfinEDI, committed to the future of claim processing.
Hi, I'm Dave Klein, co-founder and director of business development for PayDC, the chiropractic industry's leading developer of cloud-based integrated practice management software. PayDC is fast, easy, and affordable to use. PayDC will significantly help you improve your practice in 3 main areas. Number 1, it will help you reduce the amount of time needed for training. Number 2, it will help you increase your revenues, both from insurance companies and your patients. And number 3, the system is based on federal law, improving the quality of your documentation and helping you tell a better story of how you care for your patients.
Come on! And the data doc of talk, it's Tech Talk.
All right, everybody, it's Dr. Jay Greenstein here with Tech Talk, my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brad Cost, and other great friends, Kim Driggers and Steve Jaffe. Guys, thanks so much for being with us today. So excited to be here with the ICS presenting this really important information on personal injury and all the challenges that we face. And this Brad and I speak a lot on technology, as you guys know, and I want to kind of close out this segment talking about the technology that insurance companies use essentially to profile doctors. So it's called Colossus, and it's a big data tool, and it's an analytics tool. And maybe Steve, you could tell us, and Kim, you could tell us more about how Colossus impacts. It's okay, you can go ahead. How Colossus impacts providers.
Sure. So I can remember back as far as maybe 20 years ago, we started getting offers on PI cases, personal injury cases, in very bizarre numerics, $10,428.57. And the plaintiff lawyer would be like, that's ridiculous. You make a demand for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $50,000. What are you doing? You'll make offers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 25. What's this ridiculous offer? And you were told that the following: the medical bills are all inserted into a massive computer so they can have a massive database nationally, all right, because these are massive billion-dollar insurance companies. And as a result, once you submit all those medical bills, number one, they're analyzed and they're reduced. It's the same type of programming if they had a PIP coverage or MedPay coverage used to reduce your medical bills. Didn't meet the CPT codes exactly. There were some errors. But it really was used in the bodily injury world to establish value, the way the computer says the value of the case should be, based on geographic area, based on the amount of the medical bills, what was unpaid. But it never took in the human factor, obviously. There's no human factor. Crush injury, how much the property damage was, what was the speed of the vehicles, whether if it was a slip and fall, did your head smash into the ground and bleed? There's no way to input that data into the computer. It's purely medical bills in, reduced medical bills, net, and then this is what the offer will be. And it's all computerized, and major billion-dollar companies are using that to the detriment of all consumers, because it takes the human element completely out.
So Steve, you're in court, or Kim, you're in court, and the defense attorney says, look, we use this incredibly expensive computer programming with analytics, and it tells us exactly what the case is worth, and this is what we offered the plaintiff, and they should take it because we've got analytics on 10 billion people. And then, Steve, you go in with your argument that this is complete bullshit. It doesn't take into account the human factor at all. What do the judges say, you guys? What are the experiences that you've had with judges? Do they buy into the Colossus bullshit, or do they understand that it's just a way for insurance companies to reduce bills and add to their billion-dollar profits?
Kim, you want to talk about a PIP suit as it relates?
Sorry, I was just looking online, personalinjuryinstitute.com, Colossus Mastery Program. So, and I'm sorry, I wasn't hearing that question, Jay, so much.
That's
but
okay.
I can take it.
There are programs
that,
there are classes that you can to rebut this Colossus program.
Cool.
But what on the
personal
injuries, PIP?
Yeah. So hold on, really quickly. Can you?
Let me answer Jay's question.
Really quick. I'm sorry, Steve. Kim, can you just share that? Just what that link was again? Personal injury what?
Yeah, personalinjuryinstitute.com.
Okay, don't know if it's good or bad, but hey, it's a piece of information, so thank you, Kim, for sharing that. Steve, go for it.
So, two direct answers. Number one, the Colossus will never be discussed in a bodily injury liability lawsuit. That's why it's a weak tool, because once you enter litigation, none of that is admissible in evidence.
Okay.
And they don't want it. It's confidential. Proprietary information.
Yeah, that's proprietary. That would open up the lawyers to discover all the proprietary nature. So that goes out the window. All right, they'll just go in and say, and you don't talk about in Florida. You don't talk about prior offers and negotiations. None of that's admissible. Okay. You start from day one: auto accident, slip and fall, injuries, value, give me money, defend the injury, defend the liability. But in a PIP suit, there's this medical bill reduction discussion. And in a limited sense, some of this could be, that's where all the discovery was done on Colossus and exposed for what it was, is in the PIP suit realm, because they had to justify their medical bill reduction somehow.
Right. Were they able to justify it, Steve?
In Florida, PIP suits lost at the rate, Kim, I'm gonna make a comment that I think PIP suits come out in the plaintiff's favor well in excess of 95% of the time.
I don't know the number, but I would say you're right on the higher end, because the average person wants those bills paid. But again, if you have a doctor that's treating, 5 days a week or 3 days a week for months and months and months, medical necessity is an issue, and it's going to be an issue.
Yep, great point, Kim. Thank you for sharing. So, any other ideas around resources that we can share with the docs who can learn more about managing these types of cases appropriately? Any other thoughts? I love the disability guideline.
In every state there's a database of what carriers are in that state, and with the proper information and the help of your client, you can get involved. You can get on that database to try to determine quickly whether or not there's coverage and in what amounts.
Wow.
Kim?
That's great.
I don't know if the doctors so much get interested in the value of a case. In going to trial, you may, just because you know what your outstanding bills are. But, again, it's that relationship with a personal injury lawyer. This is a little off topic, but I get calls all the time from doctors saying, oh, I'm going to have my deposition taken, and, what do I need to look out for? Well, that's the problem with the doctor should be prepping you. You need to go over your notes and make sure they're legible and all of that. But sometimes I'm very surprised at the lack of, I'd say, hand-holding a little bit, because how many cases go to trial? Not that many.
Not many.
So, could be the doctor's first time going to trial. Well, he's going to need a little prep, a little hand-holding. So I always advise our members, if you're represented, I don't represent you, so, I'm not the one to talk to. And it is your patient, so you're not represented by that doctor or that lawyer. It's your patient's lawyer. But if a deposition's going to happen, you need to be prepared.
Yeah, and so even if that's great advice, Kim. Thank you. So even if the attorney doesn't reach out and say, hey, let's schedule a time for us to talk for 30 minutes about this case, I'm going to prep you. The chiropractor needs to reach out and be like, hey, attorney, let's sit down, let's talk about this case so we can be prepared. Here are the concerns I have, or here's where I think we have an issue, or whatever. Right?
Yep.
No doubt.
Guys, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was just going to repeat relationships again. I've sat here and listened to all of this, and it seems to boil down to maintaining those relationships. Call upon a trusted friend instead of a total stranger. Listen, Kim, Steve,
and
thank
I just
you
want
for
to say,
spending...
I want to say one other thing. Wait, I just want to say one other thing, Brad. Sorry, I know there's a little bit of a delay. So it definitely is about relationships, and I don't want this point to be missed, but it's also about ethics, because in the realm of risk management, handling a patient the appropriate way, clinically, administratively, financially, is what the expectation is. Period. End of story. And so it is about ethics, and the ethical folks reduce their risk, and the unethical folks increase their risk. So I didn't want that point to be missed, because we've talked about like bills running on and treating patients too long and running up the bill, like totally inappropriate, not good for the patient, not good for chiropractic, and potentially not good for you either if you're doing it. So be ethical. Kim.
A little bit on that as well is, I get calls from doctors saying either I got paid 10 cents on the dollar, full and final settlement on the check, or, this lawyer just took all the control over the case and sent my patient anywhere and didn't use my advice. And the answer is, don't use that lawyer again. Don't have a relationship with that lawyer. If you don't get paid, or if you're treated badly, or if that lawyer is really quarterbacking care, you have a choice. And that choice means don't use
one and done.
Right?
One and done. Yep, 100%. You have a choice, Kim. Love that. Great advice. Thank you. So, Brad, it's another week.
Well, Jay, another week has gone by, and it's been great. Again, thank you for joining us on Tech Talk today. We greatly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys here in a month or so, and dinner with that. So thank you very much. From my co-host, Dr. Jay Greenstein,
great to be here.
I'm Brad Cost. Have a good day.